matches, and she carried a bundle also in her hand. No one had bought so much as a bunch all the day long, and no one had given her even a penny. Poor little girl, shivering with cold and hunger, she crept along, a perfect picture of a missing. The snowflakes fell on her long flaxen hair, which hung in pretty curls about her throat, but she thought not of her beauty nor of the cold. Lights gleamed in every window, and there came to be the savory smell of roast goose, for it was New Year's Eve, and it was this which she thought. In a corner formed by two houses, one of which projected beyond the other, she sat cowering down. She had drawn under her little feet, but still she grew colder and colder. Yet she dared not go home, for she had sold no matches and could not bring a penny of money. Her father would certainly beat her, and besides, it was cold enough at home, for they had only the house roof above them, and though the largest holes had been stopped with straw and eggs, there were left so many through which the cold wind whistled. And now her little hands were nearly frozen with cold. Alas, a single match might do her good, if she might only draw it from the bundle, rub it against the wall, and warm her fingers by it. So at last she drew out one out, and wished how it blazed and burned. It gave out a warm, bright flame, like a little candle, as she held her hands over it. A wonderful little light it was. It really seemed to the little girl as if she sat before a great iron stove, with polished brass feet and brass shovel and tongs. So blessedly it burned that the little maiden stretched out her feet to warm them also. How comfortable she was! But lo, the flame went out, the stove vanished, and nothing remained but the little burnt match in her hand. She rubbed another match against the wall. It burned brightly, and where the light fell upon the wall, it became transparent like a veil, so that she could see through it into the room. A snow-white cloth was spread upon the table, on which was a beautiful china dinner service, while a roast goose stuffed with apples and prunes seemed famously sent for the most savory smell, and what that was delightful still and wonderful. The goose dripped from the dish, with a knife and a fork still in its breast, and waddled along the floor straight to the little girl. But the match went out then, and nothing was left to her but the thick dumb wall. She lightly lit another match, and beautiful Christmas tree, larger and far more prettily trimmed than the one she had seen through the glass doors at the ridge. Hundreds of wax tapers were burning on the green branches, and gay figures such as she had seen in the shop windows looked down upon her. The child stretched out her hands to them. Then the match went out. Still the lights of the Christmas tree rose higher and higher. She saw them dark in heaven, and one of them fell, forming a long trail of fire. Now someone is dying, murmured the child softly, for her grandmother, the only person who had loved her, and who is now dead, had told her that whenever a star falls, a soul mounts up to God. She struck another match against the wall, and again it was light, and the brightness there before her the goal of her grandmother, light and radiant, yet sweet and mild and happy as she had never looked on earth. "Oh, grandmother," cried the child, "take me with you. I know you will go away when the match burns out. You too will vanish like the warm stove. The splendid New Year's
shines warm and bright. I suppose you think Piccola a very strange name for a little girl, but in her country it was not strange at all, and her mother thought it was the sweetest name a little girl ever had. Piccola had no kind father, no big brother or sister, and no sweet baby to play with and love. She and her mother all lived alone in an old stone house and looked on a dark, narrow street. They were very poor, and the mother was away from home almost every day, washing clothes and scrubbing floors and working hard to earn money for her little girl and herself. So you see, Piccola was alone a great deal of time. She had not been a very happy, contented little child. I hardly know what she would have done. She had no plans Surely Santa Claus will know what it's there for. He will know I haven't any stockings, so I gave him the shoe instead.
Then she went up happily to her bed and was asleep almost as soon as she had nestled ill with her mother's side. The sun had only just begun to shine the next morning when Piccola awoke. With one jump she was on the floor and running toward the chimney. The wooden shoe was lying there where she had left it, but you could never guess what was in it. Piccola had not meant to wake her mother, but this surprise was more than any little girl could bear, and yet be quiet, so she danced to the bed with the shoe in her hand, calling, "Mother, mother, look, 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 see the present Santa Claus brought me." Her mother raised her head and looked into the shoe. "Why, Piccola," she said, "a little chimney swallow nestling in your shoe. What a good Santa Claus to bring you a bird." "Good Santa Claus, dear Santa Claus," cried Piccola, and she kissed her mother and kissed the bird and kissed the shoe, and even threw kisses up the chimney. She was so happy. When the bird thing was taken out of the shoe, they found that he did not try to fly, only to hop about the room, and as they looked closer, they could see that one of his wings was hurt a little. But the mother bound it up carefully so that it did not seem to be him, and he was so gentle that he took a drink of water from a cup and even ate crumbs and seeds out of Piccola's hand. She was a proud little girl when she took her Christmas present to show the children in the garden. They had a great many gifts, dolls, like a mama, the cars, tower pianos, but not one of their playthings was like Piccola's birdling. They were as pleased as she, and Rose hunted about the house until she found a large wicker cage that belonged to a blackbird she once had. She gave the cage to Piccola, and the swallow seemed to make himself quite at home in it at once, and sat on the perch, winking his bright eyes at the children. Rose had saved a big bag of candies for Piccola, and when she went home at last with the cage and her dear swallow safely inside it, I am sure she was not a happier little girl in the whole country of Italy. The whole country of Italy. The end. I like that one. That one was so cute. Okay, up next we have The Boy with the Box by Mary Griggs van Voorhis. It's Voorhis, Voorhis. I don't know how to say it. Alright, let's get to reading. It was an ideal Christmas day. The sun shone brightly, but the air was crisp and cold, and snow and ice lay sparkling everywhere. A light wind the night before had swept the blue icebound river clean of scattering snow, and by 2 o'clock in the afternoon the broad bed near Griggs' mill was barely alive with skaters. The girls in gay caps and scarves, the boys in sweaters and mackinaws of every convincible hue, with here and there a plump matronly figure in a plush coat or a teeny bell in scarlet, made a picture of life and brilliancy worth of an artist's fine skills. Tom Reynolds moved in and out among the happy throng
and it seemed to Tom Reynolds that all his Christmas joy went skimming away behind him.
The sun still shone, the ice still gleamed, but the skaters laughed and sang, but Tom moved slowly on with listless, heavy strokes. The Jolly Ramblers still twinkled beneath his feet, but he looked down at them no more. What was the use of the Jolly Ramblers when Ralph Evans had a pair of clubhouse skates that cost $1 more, had a graceful curve and a flatless clamp, and were guaranteed for a year? It was only 4 o'clock when Tom slipped his new skates carelessly over his shoulder and started up the bank for home. He was slouching down the main street, head down, hands thrust deep
Trembling with eagerness, Tom tiptoed around the house, managing to slip an oblong package into the capacious depths of the big sack as he did so. Thump, 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 how the knock resounded in the frosty air. The doors swung wide and Good evening, Sandy, come right in, she said. Tom had always thought what a homely woman Harvey's mother was when he happened to meet her at the grocery with her thin red hair, merely back from her calm face and a black shawl over her head. She looked up into her bag. Going to be a small ball of Christmas sunshine, he wondered he could ever have thought that it would love thee. The room was small and bare, but wonderfully gay with pine and bits of red and green crepe paper, saved from the vixens at the store, and on a large bed in the corner sat the three little girls, Kitty with her bright curls bobbing, Josephine with her black braids sticking straight out, and the baby with teeny blue eyes that twinkled and shone like Harvey's. The fine speech of the Tom had been saying over to himself the past 2 hours seemed to vanish into thin air before his excited little nose. But in flattering, slumbering tones, which everyone was too excited to notice, he managed to say something about Merry Christmas and good children, and then proceeded to open the magic sack. Miss Kitty McGinnis, he called in deep, gruff tones. Kitty took the box he offered with shy embarrassment, so she heard the lady gave a cry of amazement. Oh, a doll! Oh, the loveliest doll that ever was, she cried. Then turning to her brother, she whispered as softly as excitement. Oh, Harvey, I'm afraid he paid too much. Go on, said Harvey, his face more like a full moon than ever. Don't you know that Sandy can do whatever he wants? The other dolls were received with rapture as Josephine stroking the cold nose and laying tilted with wondering fingers, and the baby dancing round and round, waving the pink robe to Lady Clara ball above her head. Harvey McGinnis came the gruff tones of Santa Claus, and Harvey smiled over to his mother as he drew out a pair of stout cloth gloves. Miss McGinnis and that good lady smiled back as she shook out a dainty white apron of coarse embroidered ruffle. I reckon Sandy wanted you to wear that out of a Sunday